That's looking like.
Hey, team. All right, guys, have you had your coffee and your chocolate? You're going to need it. This is going to be action-packed. All right, guys, so before we start, so I'll introduce myself. So my name is Vega. I'm the founder of That Crypto Hustle, also helped Anastasia with the event. Please give Anastasia a big round of applause for throwing this event and helping out all the logistics. And so essentially, I think before we start, rather than having me read all of your bios, why don't we start with Pascal, and please each introduce yourself to the crowd.
Okay, will do. So I'm Pascal van Steen. I'm the head of growth at Blockport. Blockport is a hybrid decentralized crypto exchange from Amsterdam. I helped them set them up, the entire marketing strategy, helped them run a successful token sale back in January, and yeah, that's basically it.
Hi, I'm Jeff. I'm founder of Fulmo. We are a Lightning Network research and development company based in Berlin. And we're mainly doing the Lightning Hack Day in Berlin right now. So just in a nutshell, the Lightning Network can be seen as an upgrade to the Bitcoin and other Bitcoin-based open source protocol, and is an open source protocol in itself.
Hi, my name is Elise Moussa. I'm the sole founder and CEO of Snapay, Inc., and we're on a mission to democratize money.
Hey everybody, is it working? Perfect. I'm Mitchell. I've been marketing in the space for a long time, did a bunch of projects early on in building large communities in token sales, most notably SingularityNET and Steemit. And since then, that's basically been my interest in just helping build as large communities as I can.
Hi, I'm Chris McClure. I'm CMO of Svandis. So Svandis is a crowd-driven data collection platform for crypto traders. So we have a data mining app that's decentralized. So you can earn tokens by downloading and using it. But then we also have a gamified ecosystem where people can actually submit information on token sales and cryptocurrencies.
My name is Keith Baumwald. I'm the CMO and CPO for Celsius, and we successfully raised $50 million back in March and hit our hard cap in our ICO. So we're post-ICO now.
All right, so I think the question that everyone wants answered right now is, how can they be the next Dogecoin? No, but all jokes aside, I mean, so essentially, I think blockchain marketing is really interesting because there's so many platforms that different SaaS or ICOs are using, whether it's the medium, there's also like a different forums like Bitcoin Talk and Thread, Steemit, Discord, GitHub, Reddit, Bitcoin Wiki, Slack channels, etc. So you'll see a lot of these companies essentially being on all these different mediums to try to build a community. But in your personal experience, what is giving these companies the best ROI, and where can you figure out where your audience is? So Pascal, I guess we'll start with you.
Cool, okay, that's a good question. I think there are several ways to approach building a community. I think now, and that's quite a negative aspect, crypto startups that want to run an ICO are actually incentivized to grow their community as quickly as possible because to some investors, it's a KPI how big your Telegram community is. So I can see why people do airdrops. It's not a tactic that we leverage, but it's definitely something if you want to like have a nice vanity metric to present to your investors. I think a better way would to incentivize promoting your community would be a bounty program where you incentivize like creating actual valuable content for people in the community. So that's what we did with Blockport. We saw 20,000 participants, people creating YouTube videos, creating Reddit posts, doing Bitcoin Talk, signatures, and all that kind of stuff. So that also has the extra effect of like amplified promotion and visibility.
I think having a working product that's based on an open source protocol really helps, and then like going from that, the community can really grow, and it doesn't really matter what medium you use. If you have something people are passionate about, it will spread by itself. Just look at Bitcoin, that's how it happened and how it's still happening.
I agree with Jeff. I think that having a product means that you're credible, and credibility is very important in ICO land. I think the most important thing personally is to lead with vision and speak from the heart, and then really focus on the problem that you're trying to solve. And people can see that and feel that, and they'll become your community. And even if it's a small community, your core community who believes in you and the solution you're trying to find to a specific problem, like less tech talk, more actual real world use cases, the more dedicated and loyal your community will be, which is so integral to the long-term success of what you're doing.
Okay, so on the question of the mediums in terms of what channels to use, it absolutely doesn't really matter. It always depends specifically on who you're wanting to target. So let's say you're just going out there to raise money. You're almost playing an investment style game. And then you want to operate like an investment banker. It's all about going through the networks, building those relationships, and making that sale. Building a community, like that is your community. It's 50 people, and that's all that matters. If you're going, say, most recently my work was with data scientists, okay, that's very, very different. Then the only channel that mattered to me was going to Kaggle and talking to those guys and being like, okay, so what are you working on right now? Okay, what if I could give you a better contest, a more interesting challenge for you to build a more interesting model with a more interesting reward for more interesting data? Okay, that's a different kind of game. It always depends on who you want to go for, and until you answer that question, like, it doesn't really matter, and you have an infinite number of ways to approach that, which quickly narrow down to just a few depending on where the people who are already interested in whatever problem you're trying to solve are aggregating.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's saying it right. The key is really to, focus on the solution, but also identify the stakeholders, which is, I think, is what you're getting at. I don't think any tool that currently exists and is being used is incorrect. I mean, there's a reason why we all have like 8 freaking apps for communicating with our teams and our community. It's because they work for different people, right? So it's knowing your solution. I mean, at the same time, we have to communicate to those in Bitcoin Talk, we have to communicate to those in the bounty programs, we have to communicate to those that are in Telegram and may donate like an ETH or two, then we have to communicate to those strategic contributors, then we have to communicate to those strategic investors, then we have to communicate to our partners, and then, we have to build a company and have clients, right? Which is something that many of us in the marketing world, everybody precluded from here, in the ICO space really has no experience with, besides a handful.
So during our ICO, we made a concerted effort to focus specifically on Telegram. We saw this as the place where everyone's talking and where it made the most sense for us to have the most impact. I personally think bounties are bullshit. If you're basically just giving away equity to people who don't care about your project. And yes, there's a vanity metric involved with Telegram. Some people want to see, you'll talk to some investor and they say we have this formula, it's based on 10,000 Telegram users times blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, if you see some B2B ICO that's using AI and VR and big data to disrupt the pancake industry, and you go to their Telegram and they have 50,000 Telegram members 2 days after they launch, it's bullshit. So it doesn't actually, and then everyone in that Telegram channel is just talking about the bounty and talking about when they're going to get their tokens. And so you can tell that there's not a real community there. So we made an effort, so we decided A, to focus on Telegram, and B, to not spend any money on airdrops or bounties because we didn't think those were going to be real, genuine community members.
Right, and you bring a really good point because I think a lot of the issues as well is that in order to go in the space, if you don't have 100K for your marketing, how are you going to be able to go in all these different channels and be able to build a community, all these different channels? So it definitely goes back to content and really thinking through your strategy. So, Keith, when you guys went in and decided to only essentially focus on Telegram, how did you come up with that decision? Why Telegram versus other platforms? And as I guess, when you started the company, at what point did you start really putting your thinking hat as well for the marketing aspect of things?
So I started working for Celsius in December of last year, and we had our ICO 3 months later. So I was writing the white paper and redesigning the website and thinking about strategy all at the same time, which means I was doing everything last minute. But first of all, I think there's too many channels for someone to try to manage all of them. So you have to kind of decide, pick your battles. I didn't really have any experience with Discord or Signal, so we just didn't go there. I tried to figure out what the fuck's going on Bitcoin Talk, but I just cannot figure out why anyone would ever want to do anything on Bitcoin Talk. So I paid someone else to kind of try to promote us there. But again, it seems like all of the activity, both from the small retail investor to the biggest whale, all these people are hanging out on Telegram. And so that was really where we decided to focus our efforts.
Well, I have the glory of doing a token sale during the ban of ads, which is fantastic. So basically, we have a team that handles the bounty. I'm not as against bounties as you are. I mean, we have a little bit of different use case. We want to engage people from second world countries, third world countries, to actually submit information to use our data mining app so they can actually get rewarded. An ETH for one person can go a long way. But the thing that we made a concerted effort to focus on was content. Talking about the problem, talking about a solution, which is a very expansive solution and a lot of work. But we actually see that drives our traffic. And then the trick then comes to translating all that crap into different languages. And that's where our business, biggest expense has been. But not something I had to do. But.
So if I understand the question correctly, and I don't necessarily think I do, you're asking, how do you necessarily go about this if you don't have a huge bankroll? Yeah. Okay, so in the beginning, when we were first doing ICOs, or a lot of the airdrop experiments that were done, we didn't have a lot of money. I remember I ran the Steemit token sale, and I spent about $20,000 on that net. That was a 12 million raise. That was, in the very early days, so it was quite different. But the key thing that made that work was not just, good timing, and we made sure we were very particular about timing that so it aligned with a bullish trend, but not too bullish because then people would hold. The big thing about that was we went after our target market very, very particularly and made sure that our product would appeal to them in a very, very particular way. In that case, it was a financial product selling financial data. So we went up to a variety of hedge funds and investment banks, and we're like, okay, you can't deal with this asset because you can't have these on your books, but you yourself can, so let's have that conversation. And that ended up working very well. We just did things that didn't scale, and we found out that it didn't need to scale, and we were still able to get results with almost no money.
How many investors did you have?
In that one?
Yeah.
There were 700. 700, but the vast majority came from less than 50 people.
So, in my experience bootstrapping, what I've done is really focused on how to get the message out there without paying for it because we're bootstrapping. So I found a combination of things that worked. Medium is a wonderful platform to express yourself, and also Twitter. But in terms of speaking with the community, Telegram has been the best. And I think that's because people appreciate the fact that their privacy is taken more seriously than Facebook. However, at the same time, I've seen that using Facebook to let the world know this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, this is what Snapay is all about, has been really important as well to drive traffic to the Telegram group, and also, of course, using Twitter with the hashtags and building a community sort of like a mosaic of the problem that we're trying to solve together.
Well, besides the stuff that's been said, maybe one thing that I could add is I think it's a lot about, especially if you're in it for the long game. I'm not talking about 6 months, but I've been on it for 7 years or so. It's building personal relationships and talking to people in person, go to meetups and that kind of stuff. But that's what I mean. After a couple years, if you're still on it and you still have or stand for something that people put a value on, then you can always come back to those people and ask for their help one way or the other. And they will in one way or the other be able to help. So, but that just adds on to the other things. But I think personal networks are really important. Personal networks in the area you're interested in, or in like the product you're building or whatever.
So at Blockport, we also have basically zero marketing budget when we started out. When I got onboarded, we basically had to use a personal credit card of one of the founders to run ads if we wanted to do that. I think a very undervalued channel in like creating the first traction in your community is partnerships. And I know it's been an overused term during the bull run, but we managed to partner up with top 50 coin ARC, which had a very big overlap technologically speaking. And they allowed us to do an AMA in one of their communities. They were very enthusiastic about our product, and that was like the first initial traction with highly engaged people in our community that we generated. And that came actually basically at zero cost. And only afterwards, when we started generating some traction, fortunately we were also pre-Facebook restrictions. We started running Facebook advertising, run more traffic, and retargeting people to join our community if they spend more than X amount of time on our website. And that was something that initially helped us grow the community. I think before the pre-sale, we spent a total of 5,000 euros to raise the 1 million during our pre-sale.
So now that Facebook lifted the ban, I'm interested in knowing, have any of you gone whitelisted? Actually, even the audience. I've tried to be whitelisted for about 3-4 weeks, and I'm still waiting. I applied, yeah.
Also still waiting.
Yeah, so I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how Facebook handles that. But I mean, but what's really interesting, I guess, about the blockchain space in general is the fact that we have to be extra creative as far as anything that's growth hacking related, because we're banned on all social media. We can't do any retargeting as of right now. We can't run Google ads. And then there's been all these brouhaha with Twitter and even Instagram as far as like verified accounts and all the bots. So how are you guys sort of managing that? Because at the end of the day, I mean, let's face it, the noobs are not on Telegram, they're not on Medium, they're not on all these. And obviously, like, yes, you have to start your community, I guess, where at the core. But have you guys sort of dealt with this problem of not being able to use regular social media? I guess, Pascal.
Something we're currently looking at is setting up a influencer marketing strategy. So we are talking to the top 20 influencers and making sure that they spread the message among their large followings. I think that's a very valuable asset right now.
Well, I haven't really used Facebook in a couple of years, so I can't really comment on that. And also, we're not in a position where we're interested in noobs right now, so we don't really want to talk to them anyways.
So I'll talk to anyone and everyone and work with just about anyone and everyone that's a real person and a credible person or company. One little hack I've discovered recently on Facebook is a lot of people just started friending me because they want to find out what Snapay is all about. And so I accept their friendship, we chat a little bit, I ask them to like my Snapay page because I really believe in our mission to democratize money. When they get to the Snapay Facebook page, there's not much content on there, but what I encourage them to do is to join the Telegram group. And so I think that in a way we're kind of fighting a system that doesn't really want blockchain or ICOs to easily do what we're trying to do, with good reason, of course, because there have been a lot of scams out there. So I just kind of find it ironic that we're in the middle of this revolution and we're still relying on centralized entities to decentralize.
So on the noob questions, for the most part, I agree with Jeff. Like, noobs have almost no value to anything, because they're by definition
It's not
generic.
necessarily true. I don't know if I agree, but
not
sure.
necessarily.
We're all noobs with something.
Right, and
Someone's
those
more of an
somethings,
expert than you are. Yeah.
we aren't that useful. With the exception of the work we did at Steemit Inc. So there we weren't really after noobs per se, but we were after consumers of content, and then most especially creators of content. And we did explore a lot of the different social media channels in our attempts to do so. What we found there was very interesting. We got shadow banned a few different services, Reddit shadow banned us. That was very annoying, especially once we started getting more and more popular on Reddit. Of course, the similarities between Steemit and Reddit are direct. So we got similar treatment from a few other smaller services. We quickly found that we had to be pretty subtle when we did it, and that we had to circumvent this. We did end up using more of influencer routes to do a lot of some interesting marketing on that front. Being like, hey, there's a new approach you can take to content. Now you can get paid directly, instant payouts, directly proportional to how much people like your work. But none of that is courtesy of the social media. That was just going and building those relationships, and those people happened to have followings that we were then able to utilize, not because the services themselves aided or abetted us in that in any way. They did not.
So I have a background in SaaS, SaaS sales, SaaS marketing, so software as a service, B2B and then B2C as well. So when the bans happened, and they happened pretty quick, nothing really changed. Our strategy was focusing on the solutions we're trying to solve, or the problems we're trying to solve with the solutions, and they're just talking about it more. So we just kept talking about it, kept hammering on the doors of potential clients, and what you find, and I was also in the traditional VC-backed startup space, is that you can find, it depends on your product, of course, but you can find early adopters to your product who also want to contribute. And so the whole power law about 50 of 700 investors, contribute the vast majority. I mean, you're literally knocking on the doors of these people, or they're knocking on the doors of you. So talking about the solution, right? Because at the end of the day, you're hopefully trying to build a company that's going to be around for 6-10 years longer, hopefully. So it's not going to be the people in the Telegram community, unfortunately, that are really driving you there, unless your product is like hyper focused on some B2C problem.
I think it's important to distinguish between pre and post ICO. So, when you're in the ICO stage, all you're trying to do is find people to give you money. It's very different than the people you're marketing to afterward that you actually want to use your product. And you see this in a lot of white papers where the people are talking to the people who are going to use their product, and that's not who you should be talking to in your white paper. You should be talking to people who want to invest in your product, because they may not care about what the actual product is at all. So one of the things that worked really, and we were in the middle of our ICO when this ban started coming into place, and so we had a bunch of money that we had allocated for AdWords and Facebook that we couldn't use there. And one of the things that when you're talking to syndicates and pools, when you're in the ICO stage, they want to know where the hype is, and they want to see like, oh, okay, you're a legit company because you're retargeting me, and yeah, I went to your website, now I see your ads. That no one knows how retargeting works, right? So they're like, wow, their ads are everywhere. And so you lose that ability to do that when these guys started banning people, and where we started allocating a lot of money was with YouTubers. So there's a bunch of paid influencers basically on YouTube. You pay them somewhere between 2,000 to 10,000 ETH, depending on the size of like their subscriber community. And we saw an immediate effect from this. So immediately we'd see more people coming into our Telegram saying, hey, I saw you on blah, blah, blah's video. And we would see immediate traffic from YouTube after one of their videos as well. So that was, in terms of ROI, we saw a great ROI from the YouTube channel.
Yeah, so that's a really valid point, the power of influencer marketing, which leads to the next question. How do you get the press engaged at that point? So, I mean, I guess the first thing, obviously, is making sure that you do have traction, you have a product that people care about, then seed it to influencers, YouTubers, and then the next step is hopefully get picked up by the press. So what was sort of what happened to you organically afterwards, Keith, once the YouTubers started engaging and whatnot?
I don't know how much press we got directly, from YouTube. Sadly, I don't know if you guys have had this experience, but I get hit up all the time from people that are like, "Oh, you want to be in Inc? Pay us 3,000. Give us 5 Bitcoin. We'll get you a feature in Inc. If you want to be in, TechCrunch, it's going to be 10 grand." And they literally just send you a menu of, different press places where you can get featured. I don't know how much of that is like actually comes to fruition, or if they're just, because everything in the crypto space you pay up front. So I don't know if it's one of these things where you just pay these guys 5 ETH and they disappear, but it's happened to us so many times that I assume it's legit. Well, that part's legit. It's not legit that these journalists are actually, taking money just to feature ICOs. But we hired a PR company to help us with that, because I don't have strong PR connections. So we went the traditional route in that sense.
Same. Hire a PR firm outside of crypto. That's just my 2 cents there, especially because it's not a bull market. You know, rising tide raises all boats, and the tide is very low. So I would say hire someone that has experience reaching out to your end customers. In our situation, it was traditional like fintech and finance.
So I want to comment first on something you just mentioned regarding the YouTube thing. Dealing with influencers needs to be done with care, because depending on how you do it in an ICO, you are almost certainly encouraging someone to promote your security illegally. So it's a very sensitive line to walk. But there's lots of ways to have those discussions, like say if you do an AMA or if you just want to get credibility and have someone interview, that's one thing. If someone's going to promote and chill your asset for the purposes of investment and it's determined to be, you know, equity and all but name, then that's like a dicey line to walk. On the PR matter, so I definitely agree with Chris. PR is pretty hard. Like, I've done PR myself personally with NXT, and we had some luck there. But when I did PR with SingularityNET and Sophia the Robot, and dealing with several different firms for several different countries in several different languages, they did way better than I ever could have, that's for sure. So I couldn't agree more with Chris. You know, find someone who's better than you are to tackle whatever the market that you're going for.
I agree 1,000% with these gentlemen in terms of focus on what you're really good at and then outsource what you're not good at. So in terms of PR, I think it's great to leave it to the experts. However, for me, it's kind of ironic because I was featured, Snapay was featured in TechCrunch last year, and then this year I asked if we could have an update, and that's when TechCrunch said they weren't covering ICOs at all. There was a freeze on it, and I think it was due to regulations. So what I'm finding now is that the more that I focus on product and reach out to other companies that are open to collaborating, we can cross-promote each other. And I think that's helping us stick truer to the mission, for sure.
From my experience, I've never worked with a PR company. If it goes down to what I said earlier, if you have a certain consistency and a good product, if you will, a good project and a good network, people will eventually come to you. You can, of course, reach out to people that you know, or journalists that you know cover certain topics. And being in a city like Berlin helps, of course, if you're actually here and you meet people at events, also journalists covering certain topics, and you just invite them over and over and again. And eventually, if you're persistent enough, and sometimes this takes a couple of years. So again, it's about time frame. You will be successful and get whatever you want to have covered.
Yeah, I actually very much agree with what's being said. Like, as long as your fundamentals are good and you know what value proposition you offer to your clients, then it's practically okay to outsource PR. And we actually also hired a PR agency. For influencers, however, I found this directory, cryptoinfluence.co. They list all the crypto influencers on that site. We scraped them, and we had someone on Upwork find their email addresses and started filtering them on based on geographic location, and did some outreach to them because our rollout was geographically based, and that worked for us.
Do we have time for just one question or two, or one, three? Okay.